So now we're going to talk about an important element that is going to add flair to your development. That development trick is called visual effects. I know, sounds very common, but still, bear with me. Visual effects are really important and they take up a lot of time to build. And for visual effects, you need to understand how either particles or shaders work. And I'll give you an example of both, okay? If you want smoke, for example, notice how smoke works, right? It starts rising upwards, okay? And at certain point, it diffuses, right? So first, it has direction. Second, if you break down the smoke into a grid, each grid gains smoke from its neighboring elements and also loses smoke to its neighboring elements, right? How that happens is when we have a particular direction, any cell beneath your cell will pass on its diffuse map into its next cell, and anything that is above your cell will accept diffuse pixels from your lower cells. That's how the smoke travels in a distance, right? So what will you do in this case? One, the easy way out, a lot of game engines give you particles. What that means is you can build one game object very small that has smoke-like properties, which means the edges are diffused and the middle is grey, and you can just set that into your scene, use it as a prefab, set it as a particle and make a particle generator. What particle generator means is when you give it an input of one 3D object, it will take it and then it will generate lots of particles. It will define in which direction the particles will flow. It will define how it will behave, how many particles there will be, and what's the lifeline of it, which means at one point the particles are going to get destroyed by themselves. So how that works, right? This is basically a very useful way to make a lot of effects. And when I say effects, basic stuff like fire and smoke, right? Fire, if you see, has a very similar property like smoke. It diffuses to the edges and it keeps rising up, right? How do you do that? So you have to realize there's a threshold to the fire, right? First you set a threshold, then you notice the colors. In the middle it's white, then it goes from white to yellow to orange to red, right? So if you take the RGB values and find out a mathematical function, right? Here, yes, a bit of maths is required. You have an X and Y graph, right? And you set each value. You have three variables, RGB. You set three values, you create a graph, and you figure out a equation. Now, when I say axes, I don't mean just X and Y. You also need X, Y, Z, A, right? Because you have RGBA, 4 channels. So figure out a mathematical function for that. If you want, there is another tool online that can help you. It's an app called Desmos, where you put in the values and it will give you the mathematical function. Now you use that mathematical function to determine the density of the smoke and the color of the smoke of the fire in that particular cell. So it will calculate, the mathematical function will calculate the distance it is from the center, right, and in an elliptical shell. So basically, if you notice the shape of fire, right, it's a bit elliptical around the white circle. So if you consider that, basically it will have an equation of an ellipse as a border, right? So it will check which zone your pixel is in, and accordingly it will set the color based on the mathematical function that you give.